away onto our next topic. So we might do our next topic now just because it's here while it's next to me. Our next topic is surds. So in surds, you need to be able to do 4 things. You need to be able to rationalize. You need to be able to expand brackets and so forth. So here, for this page here, you're asked to rationalize. We won't do all of them. Let's just do question 1. Let's do question 3. Let's just do questions 1 and 3. So we'll do a mixture. So there's 2 types of rationalizing. If you're fine, just have a go yourself. This question here is typically only worth 1 or 2 marks. Rationalize means to get rid of the root from the bottom. So it means to get rid of the root, the square root sign, from the bottom of the fraction. That's all it means. So it's fine to be on the top. It can't be on the bottom. That's what rationalize means. So what we should realize is if we have a single root on the bottom, a term, if we have a single term on the bottom, we just times top and bottom by the root. So this is what we call one term. That's one term. You'll see what 2 terms looks like in a second. And this one here again, that's still just one term. If you have one term on the bottom, all you do is you times the top and the bottom just by the root. So you just times top and bottom, in this case by root 2. Here, we just times top and bottom by the root, not 3 root 7. 3 is fine. We just times top and bottom by root 7. And then we'll show you next what you do if there's 2 terms. So one term, we now times the tops, times the bottom separately. 5 times root 2 is 5 root 2. And the bottom root 2 times root 2 is 2. Because remember, our rules are surds. If you times the root by itself, you just get the number. So root 2 times root 2 is 2. And always check whether you can simplify the front numbers. In this case, 5 over 2 doesn't simplify. So that's your final answer. For question 3, we have 3 root 7 on the bottom. We have one term, so we just times top and bottom by the root, which is root 7. Times the tops, times the bottoms. On the top, 35 times root 7 is 35 root 7. On the bottom, 3 root 7 times root 7 gives you 21. If you can't do that in your head, write it out. 3 root 7 times root 7. Our rules with surds, if it's outside, it times the number outside. If there's no number outside, there's an invisible 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Root 7 times root 7 is 7. 3 times 7 gives you 21. Now, I'm going to divide the numbers in front, if possible. 35 over 21. What's common in 35 and 21? They're both divisible by 7. So I'm going to divide the top and the bottom by 7. So 35 divided by 7 gives us 5 root 7 on the top. On the bottom, 21 divided by 7 gives us 3. And that's our final answer. So rationalize is just a command word. In mathematics, rationalize means to get rid of the root, the square root, from the bottom of the fraction. It's fine to be on the top. If you've got one term on the bottom, you just times the top and the bottom by the root, because timesing top and bottom by the root is the same as timesing by 1. Doesn't change your answer. Then times tops, times bottoms, and simplify where possible. Has anyone got any questions on that before we move on to the more challenging ones? Again, you can find us all on the channel. So if we've got no question on that, we'll move on to our next one. It will get more challenging in a second. So here, if I just move this one, don't need the third one. So I'll just do the top 2. So here, so we have to do this ones first before we can show you. So now, if there's one term on the bottom, we told you just multiply the top and the bottom by the root. If you see a 2 term. If there's 2 terms, we do a slightly different process. Again, if you see a plus and a minus, that's one term. If we see 2 terms on the bottom, what we do is we place it into single brackets and we times the top and the bottom by the same two terms from the bottom, but we must change that sign. So here on the bottom we had 2 plus root 3, so 2 and root 3, they stay in the same positions. But we must change that sign. So if it's plus, they both become minus. Here on the bottom, 2 terms, place it into single brackets. We times the top and the bottom by the same 2 terms. But again, we must change this sign. If it's minus, they both become plus. That's our rule. We can now expand out our brackets. On the top, we have a single bracket. 7 times 2 gives us 14. And 7 times minus root 3 gives us minus 7 root 3. On the bottom, we've effectively got difference of 2 squares, which we know that means the 2 middle terms will cancel out. But we can show you anyway. So 2 times 2 gives you 4. I have 2 times negative root 3. This is outside, so 2 times negative root 3 is negative 2 root 3. Root 3 times 2 is plus 2 root 3. And root 3 times negative root 3, a positive times negative is negative. Root 3 times negative root 3, therefore, is negative 3. We know the 2 middle terms have to cancel out. If they don't cancel out, go back and check because there's something not right. These 2 terms, there's difference of 2 squares. They should be exactly the same. Only one will be plus and one will be negative. Plus 2 root 3, subtract 2 root 3 cancels. And in this case, 4 take away 3 is 1, so it worked out really nice. On the top, I had 14 minus 7 root 3. Dividing by 1 has no impact. So therefore, my final answer is 14 minus 7 root 3. I've achieved my objective because rationalize means to get rid of the root from the bottom of the fraction. That's it done. For question 2, again, we times top and bottom by 4 plus root 5 because the 2 terms in the bottom times top and bottom are the same 2 terms from the bottom, but you must change the sign. On the top, 22 times 4 gives you 88. 22 times root 5 gives you 22 root 5. On the bottom, double brackets, 4 times 4 gives you 16. 4 times root 5 gives you 4 root 5. Minus root 5 times 4 gives you minus 4 root 5. Minus root 5 times positive root 5 gives you minus 5. The 2 middle terms have to cancel. 4 root 5 take away 4 root 5. In this case, 16 take away 5 is 11. And we still had 88 plus 22 root 5. Can I divide both numbers by 11? I can. 88 over 11 is 8. 22 over 11 is 2. And that's my final answer. So just let us know. Yeah, so you're just multiplying by the conjugate. Just let us know in the chat. Are we happy with that? I can see some answers. 8 plus 2 root 5, which is brilliant. Have we got any questions? Can we move on? Yep, so that's great. So that topic is thirds, and it's also come under the heading of rationalizing. Again, you can find more of that if you're unsure on the channel. Our next question here, because someone asked for it earlier, is using the quadratic formula. So we always get asked, when should you apply the quadratic formula? So this one here, how do you know when to use factorization? When do you complete the square? When do you use quadratic formula? So just show you very quickly. So here, a quadratic formula is when you're asked to give your answer to significant figures or decimal points, or if you're asked to round it or give your answer as a third. So if you see those words, significant figures, decimal places, or leave your answer as a third, then we should be using the quadratic formula because it means you can't factorize it. So even being a maths teacher, I can't factorize to 2 significant figures. It's impossible. I can't factorize the decimal points. So just really quickly here. So if you see those words, you know straight away you've got to copy the quadratic formula, which if you're in the UK, that's given to you. We need to know our value of A, B, and C. So, for example here, our top one, a quadratic is always in the form ax squared. So I'm not going to go through the whole lot, just show you the ax squared plus bx plus c. You read off your value for a, b, and c. So in this case, a is the number in front of the squared term. If there's no number, there has to be invisible 1. It can't be 0, otherwise it's not quadratic. B is the number, the coefficient in front of the single letter. And C is our constant, but you've got to always take the sign. So just remember, you then substitute directly into the formula. Our formula is negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So it's going to be x equals negative b, so the negative was there anyway. B is 5, so negative 5 plus or minus the square root. B squared, b is 5. 5 squared minus 4ac minus 4 times a is 1 times c, which is negative 2, all over 2 times a, and a is 1. Why is there a plus and a minus? You use the plus first because remember, a quadratic, you get 2 solutions. So you put that into a calculator, press fraction key, use the plus first, get your answer. Go back, use the arrow key, delete the plus, change it to a minus, and get your second solution. If you had a question like question 2, first step is you always want the quadratic to equal to 0. So in this case, you'd move the x squared and minus 6 to the left by doing the inverse. Opposite add x squared is to minus x squared, opposite minus 6 plus 6, and so forth. So just be careful in terms of how the question is worded. If it says these words, decimal places, and you're solving, you always have to use the quadratic formula. If we come out of that now, so our next one here is we're going to show you one more question on adding and subtracting algebraic fractions. So we might as well start with the most challenging one, which is this question here. And this typically is worth 5 marks. So just give you a chance, please. Just give you 15 seconds in the chat. Give you a chance. How are you going to work out the following? So just give you 15 seconds while I get a drink of water. Okay, so this question here, sorry, just went to get a glass of water. So this question here is the most tricky. You're asked to add, and it's worth 5 marks. So in order to add fractions, you must have a common denominator. If you're adding or subtracting algebraic fractions, the same method applies. So here we've got x, here we've got x plus 2. If there's 2 terms, it's going to be like in single brackets. And here we have x squared minus 4. The first thing to notice, if you see a quadratic, straight away we should be thinking, can I factorize the denominator? If you ever see a quadratic, always should come into our head, can I factorize it? Once more, here on the bottom, we have what we call a difference of 2 squares. So we have dots, difference of 2 squares. We have a squared term, subtract a squared term. So my first step is I'm going to rewrite that fraction as being 11 over x plus 2, x minus 2. So that's going to be my first step. So I'm going to leave the first fraction alone. I'm going to leave my second fraction alone. And I'm going to rewrite my third fraction as being x plus 2 over x minus 2. How does that help me? Well, it helps me a great deal because now I should realise I need to work out the lowest common multiple of all 3 denominators. So here I have x in brackets x plus 2 and in brackets x plus 2 times x minus 2. As I've got a single x on the outside, each fraction must have a single x outside. As this fraction has x plus 2 in brackets, each fraction denominator must have x plus 2 in single brackets. The third fraction, it already has x plus 2, that's fine. It's also got x minus 2, so each fraction must have x minus 2. This is our lowest common denominator. So I need to change all 3 fractions to have a common denominator of x in brackets x plus 2, x minus 2. That's the lowest it can possibly be. They all have to have x, they all must have in single brackets x plus 2, and they all must have be multiplied by x minus 2. So now all I have to do is go back to each fraction. So my first fraction, I had 7 over x. I need it to have x multiplied by x plus 2, x minus 2. I can do anything to a fraction as long as whatever I do to the top, I do the same as the bottom, i.e. multiplying. So here I need to have x plus 2, x minus 2 on the bottom. So I'm going to have to multiply the top by x plus 2, x minus 2, and the bottom x plus 2, x minus 2. And hopefully it makes more sense when you've done all 3. My second fraction, I had originally had 5 on the top, and on the bottom I have x plus 2 in brackets. I need to have x times x plus 2, x minus 2. So what's it missing? I need to times top and bottom by x, and I also have to times top and bottom by x minus 2. If you see a single term, we normally write that at the front. My last fraction, it already had 11 on the top. On the bottom, it had x plus 2 times x minus 2. What do I want it to have? Again, I want it to have x multiplied by x plus 2, x minus 2. Hence, it's missing x. So I need to multiply the top and bottom by x. So hopefully you can now see that all 3 fractions have a common denominator. All I have to do now is work out the numerator. So I don't need to keep writing this out now. I know my common denominator is simply x, brackets, x plus 2, x minus 2. And all I have to do is expand and collect like terms on the top. Well, on the top here, I've got 7. I know x plus 2 times x minus 2. That was simplified to give us x squared minus 4 when expanded. X squared minus 4 when expanded. So sorry about that if it froze there. Sorry, I think that was my screen that froze. I don't think it's your side. I think it was my side. So let us know, does that make sense or not? So I'm not sure where that froze. So let us know, does that make sense or are we confused? So where did we lose you then? Which part? Which part did it cut out at? So I'm not sure if that froze or not. So again, so apologies if that froze again. I think the iPhone just cut out for some reason. I think it needed to be charged at the same time. So apologies if that cut out. If you're unsure again, we can upload our solution to TikTok later on. So don't worry again if you missed part of it. But that topic was algebraic fractions, simplifying algebraic fractions, and so forth. The next thing we'll show you is we'll show you how to solve. We can do a tangent to a circle, and we can also do some geometry as well, involving angles and so forth. So if I do the tangent to a circle first, and then we'll go from there. So this question here, if we answer this one here, so this question's worth 5 marks. So 5 mark question, 5 marks. It asks you to find the equation of the tangent to the circle x squared plus y squared equals 45 at the point 3, 6. So first of all, what we should know is an equation of a circle is always the form x squared plus y squared equals r squared. That's the equation of a circle. Here we've got x squared plus y squared equals 45. So we've got a circle. If it says x squared and y squared, the center is always 0, 0. And r squared is 45. So to get r, we would square root 45. If we use surds, root 45 is the same as 9 times 5. Our radius, therefore, is 3 root 5. So this radius here, that's 3 root 5. That's minus 3 root 5, 3 root 5, and minus 3 root 5. I need a bit more room, so I'll just rub that out. So that's my first bit to understand. What I want to work out is I want to work out the equation of a tangent. A tangent has the letter T, which means it touches the circle at just 1 point. And the 1 point it touches at is the point 3, 6. So my circle's in the red, my tangent is this pink line, and I want to find the equation of this tangent. A tangent is a straight line, and a straight line always takes the form y equals mx plus c, where m is the gradient, how steep the line is, and c is our y-intercept, where our straight line crosses the y-axis. What we should also realise is we should realise that a radius in a tangent make a 90-degree angle. Wherever you see a radius, this is a radius because that's the centre 0, 0. That's my circumference, the point P. A radius meets a tangent at 90 degrees, which means they're perpendicular to one another. So my first step is I can work out the gradient of the line OP. So OP is my radius, effectively. Gradient of OP, that's effectively my radius. To work out the gradient of that line there, OP, I can do my change in y divide by change in x. My rise over my run. My change in y, my vertical change, divide by the change in x. Some of you like to draw a triangle. Some of you like to use a formula. I can show you both ways. If you're doing the triangle, change in y is the vertical height over the change in x, which is the horizontal height, because again, that will make a right angle triangle. So in this case, I have 6 over 3, which gives me 2, because remember that's a right angle triangle. I now know the gradient, this line here, my m, for this line is 2. I don't want that gradient. I want to find the gradient of my tangent, but I should know that the radius and the tangent are perpendicular. They meet at a 90-degree angle. Therefore, the perpendicular gradient, my tangent, is going to be -1 over m. That's our rule. Because remember, perpendicular is when two gradients multiply together give you -1. To find the perpendicular gradient is the negative reciprocal. It's -1 over, in this case, 2. So therefore, my gradient is -1/2. So just let us know in the chat first. Are we happy with that? Or are we confused so far? So if we're losing you, which part are we losing you in? Okay, let's just go over that one more time in a sec. One sec. So let me just do that one more time. So here, what we should know is, so I'll go through this one more time slower. X squared plus y squared equals 45. That's the equation of a circle. If it says x squared and y squared, the center is always on 0, 0. That's our rule. If it says x squared and y squared, the center is always on 0, 0. We know we want to find the tangent at the point 3, 6. The tangent, a radius and a tangent always make 90 degrees. So it's circle theorems. A radius goes from center to the circumference. A radius meets a tangent at 90 degrees. That means that those two lines are perpendicular. So my radius and my tangent are perpendicular. I know a tangent is a straight line. So if a tangent is a straight line, it's going to be at the form y equals mx plus c. You must know the upper heart. Equation of a straight line is y equals mx plus c. In order to find the gradient m of the tangent, I first of all have to work out the gradient of the line OP. So my first step is I find the gradient of OP. You could just draw a right angle triangle and just do the rise over the run. The change in y, the rise over the run. This point here is 3, 6. So therefore, it has a vertical height of 6 and it has a horizontal of 3. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. And that's the gradient of this line OP. So this line here has an m value, the gradient of 2. So hopefully we're okay so far. If that has a gradient of 2, this black line here, the OP, I want to find the gradient of the tangent. I know the radius and the tangent are perpendicular. They meet at 90 degrees. Therefore, to work out the gradient of the tangent, I can just use the formula -1 over m, the negative reciprocal. So some people learn it as -1 over m. Other people just know it as a negative reciprocal. So my previous gradient was 2. Negative reciprocal means -1 over 2, which gives me -1/2. I know now that that gradient of my tangent is -1/2. So I can just substitute into y equals mx plus c. So now what I'm going to do is I know my gradient is -1/2. I know the equation of a straight line is y equals mx plus c. I know what m is now. So I can write y equals -1/2 x plus c. I need to find c. C is where my line crosses the y-axis, my y-intercept. I can't read it from the graph because it's not to scale. All I need to do is substitute in one point, which is the point 3, 6. So substitute the 1 point in. I know when x is 3, y is equal to 6. Therefore, on the right, I'm going to have 6 is equal to -1/2 times 3, because -1/2 x is 3, plus c. -1/2 times 3 is -1.5. I want to get c by itself. Opposite of -1.5 is to add 1.5 to both sides. On the left, I'm going to get 7.5. On the right, -1.5, add 1.5 cancels. Now I have c. Therefore, my final answer is y is equal to -1/2 x plus 7.5, or 15 over 2 as a fraction. You could write that. You could write that as -0.5 x plus 7.5. Either of those are the same answer for 5 marks. So let us know in the chat, does that make sense or not? So Does that make sense better or not? Someone said, why minus a half, not a half? Because it's they're perpendicular. It's the negative reciprocal. Yep, so I think that's a lot better then. Hopefully that makes more sense. So remember, a tangent, a radius meets a tangent at 90 degrees. That means that these two lines are perpendicular. If two lines are perpendicular, that's like having the first gradient times the second gradient will always equal to -1. That's a rule. So to find, if you have one gradient, to find the other gradient, you can just do -1 over m. So that's what we mean by perpendicular. And -1 over m is the same as the negative reciprocal. So just let us know, can we move on, or is there anyone got any more questions? So I think most people said they're okay with that now. Gradient represents the steepness of a line. Someone said do vectors. I don't think there's any vectors on this file. I can do vectors the next time. There's no vectors on this presentation. There's 1,500 questions on this presentation, but vectors is on presentation number 7, and this is presentation number 4. So there's vectors not on this one, unfortunately, but I can do vectors another time. So our next one is over here, and this one's quite tricky again. It's worth 5 marks, and it's called quadratic inequalities. So 5 marks, it's asking you to solve the following. So this question was actually worth 5 marks. It asks you to solve the quadratic inequality 5x squared minus 19x minus 8 is greater than 2x squared plus x minus 1. So does anyone have any idea how we're going to approach this question? What do you reckon my first step will be, please? So in the chat, let me know what's going to be my first step. Yep, so someone said my first step will be to get the quadratic on one side and put it equal to 0. So I know it's a quadratic inequality because the highest power is 2. I first of all want to get my quadratic to be on one side. Inequalities work the same as an equation. You keep the sign as long as you don't multiply or divide by a negative. If you multiply or divide by a negative, you've got to flip the sign. So the opposite of add 2x squared is I'm going to subtract 2x squared from both sides because I want to have the whole quadratic on one side. I've got more x squared on the left. So the opposite add 2x squared is subtract 2x squared. Opposite of plus x, perfect, is to subtract x from both sides. Opposite of minus 1 is to plus 1 to both sides. So I've got 5x squared take away 2x squared, which gives me 3x squared. Negative 19x take away x gives me negative 20x. Negative 8 plus 1 gives me negative 7. And it's still greater than 0. If it says a quadratic, if it says greater than 0, it's where the graph is above the x-axis. That's the thing that students forget. It's where the graph is above the x-axis. If it said less than 0, it's where the graph is below. Here it says the quadratic is greater than 0. Greater than 0 is where the graph is above the x-axis. So my first step is I put my quadratic equal to 0 and I solve for x. So again, it was worth 5 marks, so quite tricky. I put my quadratic equal to 0 and I simply solve for x. So again, you could use the quadratic formula. You could factorize, complete the square. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to factorize it quite quickly. So we did factorizing earlier. If it says 3x squared, well, 3x squared is prime, so one has to be 3x, the other has to be x. Negative 7 is also prime. The only way to get a negative is 1 positive, 1 negative. I can see straight away that this is negative 7, and this is plus 1. If you can't factorize, or you find that difficult, just use quadratic formula. I'm solving, so I put each bracket equals to 0. So I've got 3x plus 1 equals to 0, or I have x minus 7 equals to 0. Opposite of plus 1 is subtract 1 from both sides. 3x equals negative 1. Opposite times by 3, divide both sides by 3. 3 over 3 cancels to give us x. X is equal to negative a third. That's one solution, one root. On the right, opposite of minus 7 is to add 7 to both sides. Negative 7 adds 7 cancels. X is equal to positive 7. So I've now got two solutions. They're my two roots, or my two solutions. That's where my graph cuts the x-axis. So you don't get any marks for the sketch. So quick sketch. Negative a third will be somewhere here. Positive 7 will be obviously a lot further here on the right. This is my x-axis. X goes across. Looks like a cross. Y rhymes with sky. Look at the shape. If the number in front of the squared term is positive, so if the number, like the a, in front of the squared term is positive, it's going to be upward facing like a U shape, a parabola. It's positive, so it's going to be an upward, it's an upward like U shape, so it's going to look like something like this. I don't need to worry about turning point, etc. That's going to be my quadratic roughly. I want to know where the quadratic is greater than 0, where the graph is above the x-axis. So look at my graph. Where is the graph above the x-axis? So here's the x-axis is above for this region to the right and this region going off to the left. It's two separate regions. So therefore this one, the numbers are getting bigger. So it'll be like 7, 8, 9. So as an inequality, this side will be x is greater than 7. You can't have the extra line because it doesn't have the extra line. So it's like having an open circle. And for this region here, it's a separate region, or x is less than negative a third. And that's your answer complete. Someone said do functions. We can do functions next, and that's fine. Someone said do a Venn diagram. So does that make sense or not? Do we have any questions? That topic is called quadratic inequalities. Okay, so if we come out of that, so a lot of people are saying do functions. There's a function question here. I'll narrow it down slightly. So let's just do. So here, let me add one question at the start. So okay, answer this question on functions then. So a lot of students ask this. So you've got 4 questions. I'll give you a chance first of all. So 4 questions on functions. I think my iPad stopped working as well. So I'll give you a chance. Have a go at finding 1 mark. Find g of -2, please. 2 marks. Find gf of a. Question 3, 2 marks. Find ff of a. Question 4, 2 marks. So in total, 7 marks. Have a go at answering part 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yep, so the question number 1, you should get -1, which is spot on. What about questions 2, 3, 4, and 5p? So I don't know if my iPad might have froze a second. So we'll see if we can write. Any idea how you unfreeze an iPad? Someone says, don't know where you find that on an iPad. Power button. Right, now just switch it off. I might have to switch to paper. So I'll answer this question on paper for you. So just bear with me 1 second. I'll get a piece of paper. So this question here, we'll just go back to good old-fashioned pen and paper. So when an iPad lets you down, let's just go back to drawing on top of it. So question 1, it says, I'll do that so I don't wreck my iPad. So we're given two functions, f of x, g of x. So the first one, it said find g of -2. So into the function of g, every time we see x, we're going to substitute in -2. So I know g of x is simply x squared minus 5. I'm working out g of -2. So every time I see x, I'm substituting in -2. So remember, x squared means we're going -2 squared minus 5. -2 squared means -2 times itself. -2 times -2 is +4. Because remember, a negative times negative is positive. And 4 take away 5 gives you -1. So hopefully you can still see that okay on the screen. Yep, so that's perfect. So question 1, you should have got -1. Question 2, you're asked to work out gf of a. So if you see two functions or two letters, it's called a composite. So gf of a, two letters, a composite function. We normally advise students to add an extra pair of brackets. Leave the outside function alone, which is g. You always work out the inside function first. So f of a means into the function of f. Every time you see x, we're substituting in a. So 3x in algebra means 3 times x. X is now a, so 3 times a is 3a, and you've still got +1. Like so. My next part is, this is my answer. And I'm substituting my answer into the outside function, which in this case is g. So into my function of g now, every time I see x, x is actually now 3a plus 1. So therefore on the right hand side, every time I see x, I'm going to substitute 3a plus 1. So instead of saying x squared, we know x squared means x times itself. X is now 3a plus 1. So it's going to be 3a plus 1 multiplied by itself, which is 3a plus 1. And don't forget, I've still got my -5 on the end. I'm now going to expand my double brackets. So I'm going to expand these brackets here. Some people use FOIL, first, outside, inside, last. It's up to you if you need that or not. So first term, 3a times 3a. Well, 3 times 3 is 9. A times a is a squared. So 3a times 3a gives you 9a squared. I do my outside terms. 3a times 1 gives you plus 3a. Inside terms, 1 times 3a gives you 3a. And 1 times 1 gives you 1. That's the brackets expanded. Don't forget, you still got this -5 on the end. I now collect like terms. So like terms must have the same base and the same power. So I have 9a squared. I have 3a plus 3a, which gives us 6a. And 1 take away 5 gives you -4. Yep, so this is some great answers. So thank you for sharing. Apologies, we're just going to answer this question this way, just because my iPad's froze. The next one is, it said work out ff of a. So ff of a, exactly what it says on the tin. If you're working out ff of a, let me just write here. So ff of a, ff of a. Again, you've got two letters, so composite function. Add an extra pair of brackets. Leave the outside function alone, which is f. Do the inside first, which is f of a. Into the function of f. Every time you see x, we're substituting a. 3x means 3 times x. X is now a, so we're going to get 3a plus 1. That's our answer. It goes into the outside function, which again is just f. Every time you see x, x is now 3a plus 1. So 3x means 3 lots of x. X is now 3a plus 1. And you still got +1 on the side. I'm now going to expand my bracket. 3 times 3a gives us 9a, and 3 times 1 gives us 3, and you still got plus 1. Collect like terms, I get 9a, 3 add 1 gives us 4. Yep, so that's perfect. See a lot of answers. The last one's probably the most tricky. It says work out f to the minus 1 of a. So if you're working f to the minus 1 of a, that means you'll find the inverse function for f. So if I want to find the inverse function for f, and I'm going to substitute in a, as I want to find the inverse function, if you see a negative 1, it means the inverse. First of all, I let y equal the function of f. So I'm going to let y equals f of x, which in this case is 3x plus 1. And I always rearrange for x. There's 5 ways you can do it. I always rearrange this way. So rearrange for the letter x. Opposite of plus 1 is to minus 1 from both sides. 1 take away 1 cancels. On the left, I'm left with y minus 1 equals 3x. Opposite of times by 3, I want x by itself. Divide both sides by 3. I'm going to switch in a second back to an iPad. Therefore, I've got x. So x is equal to y minus 1 over 3. Now that you've got x, x becomes your inverse function. So x becomes f to the minus 1 of x. And every time you see the letter y, you change it to x. That is your inverse function for f. But you need to substitute now in the point a. Therefore, every time you see x, you substitute a. So your answer is a minus 1 over 3. Yeah, so this is some great answers. So thank you very much. I'll switch now back to the iPad, but I'll switch it to a different setting. So I'm not using that because that file, I think there's too many questions on the file. It's just crashed it. So if we switch now to this then. So here, if we switch to this part here. So someone said do Venn diagrams. So let's see here. So if we just come out of this a sec. So I'll do a Venn diagram if I can find one. I just can't find one at the moment. So we'll do whatever question comes up. If I can't find a Venn diagram, I'll do something else. Answer this question first, just because it's here. Answer this question first. It was quite interesting. So 5 marks, and I'll promise to find a Venn diagram in a second. So just answer this question first. So 5 marks. This was from Edexcel. So you're told, here is a parallelogram. You're told, work out the value of x and the value of y, please, for 5 marks. So can anyone tell me in the chat, please, how am I going to approach that question? What do you know is special about a parallelogram? Any idea or not? Let me know if you have an idea and I'll just start. So what is special? We should know that opposite angles are equal. That's a step that students forget. So you must know that, otherwise you come unstuck in this question. If it's a parallelogram, opposite angles in a parallelogram are equal. So therefore I can put this equal to that, and it's worth 5 marks. So I can put 5x. Once you get the hang of it, it's not that bad. It's just realizing the question. So 5x minus 20, therefore, is equal to 2x plus 43. I've got x on both sides. I've got numbers on both sides. So I've got more x on the left. So the opposite add 2x is I could subtract 2x from both sides. 5x take away 2x is 3x. So I've got 3x minus 20. On the right, 2x take away 2x cancels. Left with 43. Opposite minus 20 is I'm going to add 20 to both sides because I want to get x by itself. Negative 20, add 20 cancels. So I've got 3x. On the right, 43 add 20 gives me 63. I don't want 3x. 3x means 3 times x. Opposite times by 3. Divide both sides by 3. 3 over 3 cancels. Gives me x. 63 divided by 3 will give me 21. So I know x is 21 degrees. Now that I've got x, I can now obviously substitute back into my equation. So now I know x. I could substitute back here. So I know 2x means 2 times x. Well, 2 times 21 is 42. And 42 add 43 would give us 85. So this angle here is now 85 degrees. So I substitute back into x. This one here, it says 4y minus 5x. I don't know what y is yet, so leave 4y alone. But I know minus 5x means minus 5 multiplied by x. X is 21, which therefore will give me 4y minus 105. Yep, so it's spot on. My next step is you should realise co-interior angle. If you see a C shape, that's called co-interior. And co-interior angle, the angles add up to 180 degrees. So these two angles here must add up to 180 degrees. So I'm just going to add them up using algebra. So I've got 85. I've got 4y. I'll write that one first. 4y minus 105. That's that one. Plus 85. That was the total top one. And in total, they must add up to 180. Collect like terms on the left. So I've got 4y. I've got minus 105 plus 85, which will give me negative 20. And that equals to 180 degrees. Again, I'm solving for y. Find y, cover it up. Opposite of minus 20 is to add 20 to both sides. Negative 20, add 20, cancels, leaves me with 4y. 4y equals 200. Opposite of times by 4, divide both sides by 4. 4 over 4 cancels, give us y. 100 over 4, dividing by 4, half it again. Half of 200 is 100. Half of 100 is 50. So my two angles, x equals 21 degrees. Y is equal to 50 degrees. Yep, so some great answers in the chat. So just let us know. Has anyone got any questions? Are we happy with that? The main thing, the algebra isn't too bad. The most bit is to remember a parallelogram, opposite angles are equal. Because without knowing that fact, you wouldn't have been able to solve the equation. Because just knowing that this makes a C angle 180, you can't have solved that by itself because you've got x's and y's. So that was that question. So we're trying to find questions that people ask for. Again, it depends which papers they've come from. So if we come out of that paper, these are taken from Edexcel, OCR, AQA, and so forth. So if we can't find it, I'll just do whatever question comes up next then. Is that a Venn diagram? There's a Venn diagram. So someone asked for this question. So this one actually. So I'm not quite sure who asked for it, but there we go. So here we go. So just answer this one question on a Venn diagram, then we'll move on. So 5 marks. It was on foundation and higher. So don't worry whatever tier you are. Just give you a chance. Have a go at the following. So where do we start? 5 marks. 3 marks for completing the Venn diagram. 2 marks for completing find the probability the member is a set of A and B. So first of all, this weird thing that looks like an E is like an epsilon. That's like a thing that's like a funny E. That's the only numbers that can be in that whole Venn diagram. So we know first we're going to have numbers 1 to 10. We know in set A, you can have the even numbers, but they must obviously be between 1 and 10. So a good step first will be to write out all our even numbers between 1 and 10, which in this case is going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. B is factors of 10. Remember, factors of 10 are numbers that divide into 10 and do not leave a remainder. Factors normally come in pairs unless it's a square number. So factors of 10 are 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. You always start with a Venn diagram. You've got two sets, A and B. You always start in what we call the overlapping, the intersection. And in the middle, that's what we call A and B. If it looks like an N means and. So therefore, it must belong to A and in B. It must be in A and in B. It must be in set A and in set B. Therefore, it must be an even number and a factor of 10. What numbers are even and also a factor of 10? Well, we can see that 2 is common, so that goes in the middle. And we can also see that 10 is common. And as far as I can see, that's the only two numbers that are common. So they're the only ones that go in the middle. So remember, the intersection in the middle, that's A and B. N stands for and. It must be in set A and in set B. So even numbers between 1 and 10 are 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Factors of 10. Factor of 10 is numbers that divide into the number, do not leave a remainder. Factors generally come in pairs unless it's a square number. So factors of 10 are 1 and 10, because 1 times 10 is 10, and 2 and 5. In here, the only numbers that are even and factors of 10 are 2 and 10. Complete the rest of the Venn diagram. So in set A, the rest of the even numbers. So I have 4, 6, and 8. So 4, 6, and 8. Also, once you've used it, it's helpful to cross it off from the top so you don't confuse yourself. So 4, 6, and 8. So I'm going to cross off 4, 6, and 8. Anything else left from set B? Well, set B is factors of 10. I still have 1 and 5. So 1 and 5. And anything else that I haven't used for my set must be placed inside the rectangle. So here I have the numbers 3, 7, and 9. Doesn't matter anywhere inside the rectangle, and that's correct. Now, my final bit for 2 marks is that a number is chosen at random from the universal set. So if it's chosen from the universal set, it's any numbers from 1 to 10. So probability, therefore it's out of 10, because it says it's chosen at random from the universal set. The universal set is the whole numbers 1 to 10. Find the probability that this number is in the set A and B. So remember, you must know the notation. If it looks like an N, that means and. If it looks like a U, that means union. So I'll explain the difference in a second. So if it says A and B, that's this intersection. So it must be in A and in B. It must be in set A and in set B. There was only 2 numbers. So you've got 2 chances out of 10, which we can simplify to give us 1 over 5. It didn't ask us to simplify. So you'd still get the same 2 marks, leaving us 2 over 10. But we normally would simplify our fraction down to be 1 over 5. Because they're both even, divide top and bottom by 5. Simplest form is 1 over 5. So just one more thing with set theory while we're here. So we said if you have 2 overlapping circles, this bit in the middle, that's called A and B. It's written as that, like N. If it said A union B is everything within the 2 circles. So it's everything here, including the middle, and there. That's the difference. So A and B is just the intersection, the overlapping part. N means and. A union B is everything in A and everything in B, including the intersection. So just remember, and so forth. Someone says, why did you divide it? So probability, you can write probability as a fraction, decimal, percentage. Chance of a number being selected, there was 2 chances out of means divide, 10 different numbers, and so forth. So someone asked for probability, that was that. So I'm trying to answer the other question that people asked for. So let's just answer this question here a sec while it's there. So we'll do one question this because we haven't done it today, and then we'll move on to our next topic. So here, just give you a chance. So question 21, it was worth 4 marks, 2 marks for part A, 2 marks for part B. It did appear on both foundation and higher. So question 21, please. Write 81 as a product of its prime factors. That means like a tree diagram. Prime factors are like 2, 3, etc. most people start, if you've got 84, you might have chosen 2 and 42. Then you might have chosen 2, 21, and you might have chosen 3 and 7. As soon as they're prime, you put a ring around it, so you circle it. So 84 is the same as 2 times 2 times 3 times 7. It says write it as a product. Product means times, so you must have timeses in between your numbers. Or you could write that in index form as 2 squared times 3 times 7. So you could write like that. Or you could write it as 2 squared times 3 times 7. Either of those is correct. To find the lowest common multiple of 60 and 84, if it's part B, it normally follows on most of the time. So always check it. The easiest way, lowest common multiple, you could list out the multiples of 60 and the multiples of 84, but you could be there all day. So like 60, 120, 180, multiples of 84, 84, 168, and so forth, and find the first time that they appear in both times table. Because lowest common multiple, multiples of 60 are the 60 times table. Multiples of 84 are the 84 times table. The easiest way, or the most efficient way, is you draw a Venn diagram. So first of all, do 80. You've done 84 already. We haven't done 60, so do 60 like here. Again, 2 and 30, 2, 15. If it ends in 5, 5 has to go in 3 and 5. I now have 84 and I have 60 as a product of its prime factors. I can draw a Venn diagram from scratch. So 2 numbers, so 2 overlapping circles. I'm going to call this one on the left, doesn't matter which one, 84, and this one here, 60. Any numbers that are common must go in the overlapping, the intersection. So prime numbers that are common, I've got 2 that's common in both lists, so it goes in the middle. I've got another 2 that's common, so it goes in the middle. I've also got 3 that's common. Any numbers I'm missing from 84 goes in the left, because it was the left-hand circle was 84. In this case, I have the number 7. So I'm going to put it here. Any numbers I'm missing from 60, I'm missing number 5, goes here. How do I use a Venn diagram? If I want to find the highest common factor is you times numbers in the middle. Because highest common factor thing at C is common. So 2 times 2 times 3. It didn't ask you in this case, but it could for your exam. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. So 12 is the largest number that divides into 60 and 84 without leaving a remainder. I wanted the lowest common multiple. To find the lowest common multiple, all you do is you times all the numbers inside the Venn diagram. So I just do 7 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. That's all I do. And again, if you had a calculator, you could put it into calculator. Otherwise, you could just work it out. And in this case, it would come out to be 420. Again, a quicker way to do this